Good afternoon. The beautiful Mark is with us today. How are you, Mark?
Hi, Eli. I'm very well. How are you, Eli?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Excellent.
Thank you for joining me.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, really good. So, I met you in November, I believe, or October
Hmm.
in Glastonbury at the Thrive Symposium.
Yeah, we had a technical issue which we managed to fix, didn't we? With the laptop with your
Yeah,
fantastic projector. Yeah,
yeah,
that was Thrive for Lisa.
yeah,
We had a wonderful day.
yeah. It was really good, and I was really blown away by the fact that the work you're doing is almost unique. I mean, you are unique, obviously, but the work you're doing is in an amazing space. And I just thought, wow, this is fantastic that we have someone who is also in the Southwest doing, some incredible sacred earth energy work is the only way I can describe it. Do you want to tell the audience a little bit about what you do and how you came to be doing it?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I'm a designer. I've done interior architecture and architecture for about 30 years now, and that was always my passion. About I was living in Australia about 20 years ago, and I found a new Tai Chi master. I'd done martial arts since I was a kid, and I started training with him, and it was sort of amazing, like one-on-one in a park and quite classical. And then week two, he said we're gonna do the energy work. So maybe some of the listeners have heard of qigong, a bit like pranayama. This is a special Taoist martial arts qigong called Neigong to superpower the internal systems and designed to supercharge the Tai Chi. And it changed my awareness, changed my consciousness after about a year, and my whole world changed. And I wouldn't say it was an awakening to a much greater opportunity of a much greater environment than I'd lived in before. And I spent went on a 3 year journey of discovery and learning for hours and hours a day. And at the end of it, I realized that there was a whole world of ancient sciences and traditions and methodologies and the way knowledge and wisdom about harmonics and geometry and how people used to live and recognize the energies of the earth and used to build in that way. And so I sought a teacher out. So I spent several years looking for a body of knowledge and a teacher that could allow me to do that, to allow me to be able to still do and what I've always done, to be able to create and to produce spaces that enhance life and enhance our joy and our appreciation and our experience of life. And that tradition is from Europe. So essentially, the best way to describe it is it's the European equivalent of what people may have heard of, what feng shui or Vastu Sastra. So feng shui is the Chinese Taoist system, probably the most famous system of harmonizing and balancing space. Um, there's a complement, another system in India called Vastu Sastra, which is about essentially the both systems about understanding environments in terms of energy and balance and creating spaces that allow us to align with the energies of the heaven and earth, so we can have a much greater experience and live healthy and balanced lives. I found my teacher, who is the lineage holder of the Western European Celtic tradition. It's quite a unique tradition. It basically encapsulates 3 or 4 millennia of Celtic builders building with stone on the land and understanding the earth energies. And then about 1,200 years ago, a whole load of information then came back with the Templars from the East. What they brought with them the Arabic arch, which then in basically allowed the Gothic arch to and the Gothic style to create cathedrals and huge edifices. So essentially, we have a technological leap of architecture which incorporated all the ancient knowledge that had been lost to Europe in the Dark Ages, Pythagorean geometry, mathematics, sound, which then, and working and building with stone in a particular way, which then merged with the existing tradition of working with the land and understanding the earth energies, building with stone. So that was stone circles, dolmens, standing stones, all the structures that that litter the, Europe, England, France, and Europe, and those, and also other cultures all around the world, working with the energies and using different structures and geometries onto the land. These two traditions came together, and the tradition is called the master builder tradition, and those practitioners were the original architects of Europe. They built churches and cathedrals and castles, and they were the architect, the surveyor, the designer of the land, and then they would then give the designs with an understanding of the cycles of the sun and the moon and the earth energies to the masons to build with. And over time, the masons then acquired some of their geometry, and then they went on their own path. The master builders then built churches and cathedrals for the Catholic Church for millennia, until about 100 years ago that work stopped, and the tradition basically went quiet until about 1960s, when it was made public, and we've now had 50, 60 years of research and regeneration in the tradition, and now it's being taught again in its complete form. And so I've studied that, and I teach that now, and I use that within my practice.
It's a fascinating amount of information you've got that you've brought together, Mark. I really resonate with that idea of having the Celtic tradition and then losing it, and then it having a place in the world where that knowledge is kind of kept in a sacred space, and then it coming back here. Because my journey over the last couple of years has been almost exactly that, whereby I've reconnected with my Celtic heritage in a really deep and very extremely deep way, to be quite honest with you, whereby I've remembered who I am and what I'm doing and where I've come from. And I think a lot of people are going through that same experience. And I think probably the way that you've done it is on such it's just remembering that sacred space that we came from many, many years ago. So, but I love it in the way that Mark Keane, I don't know whether you know Mark Keane, but Mark Keane he's done a similar thing with Kundalini energy, and he's looked at the Celtic tradition and stories, and he's actually found themes and lineages of esoteric knowledge about the pineal gland, pituitary gland, and the chrism oil in Celtic myths. So yeah, really powerful stuff. And so there seems to be a kind of a raising of this knowledge that's now coming forward. Just to say that, I don't know whether you know, but there was I can't remember when it was now. It might have been in the 50s, might have been in the 60s, but there was a call out from the Archdruid of Britain to the rest of Britain for anybody who's practicing druidry, and let's not get into the definition of that now, but pagan kind of esoteric knowledge, let's say that. And over 20,000 people turned up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it's not known, and our culture is not acknowledged. And there's a great bookshop in Glastonbury, and I went in there one day and I said, have you got any books on the Celtic tradition of breathing, meditation, anything like that? And he went, oh my God, and he just grabbed hold of me and started talking to me, and he said, loads of people come in and they look at the Hindu traditions, they look at the Tao, they look at all these, you know, the Mayan and all these other traditions, but very few people come in and actually talk about the Celtic tradition. And in fact, you know, and that is fascinating. You know, it's fascinating because actually Glastonbury is just absolutely full of it. The whole place, as you know, is just full of
Yeah,
you know, Gaelic paganism. It's absolutely astonishing. And when you realize that and you look around, you're just like, it's everywhere.
yeah,
It's like, well, it's hidden in plain sight, isn't it? In Glastonbury, particularly. But it was interesting how he's saying that lots of young people don't connect to their own
yeah,
indigenous lineage. And I think that's something which is definitely, you know, growing and rising at the moment. So on the back of that, the work you're doing is specifically, I know you're doing work abroad, but could you just tell us a little bit about the kind of the nature of your work in the UK? Because we are on a specific piece of land, has a specific alignment to the stars. You know, could you just tell us a little bit about that, and if you're doing any work with the land here at the moment?
yeah, yeah. Well, the work is split between, I guess, a number of different areas. One is working with the land itself, building structures, circles and wheels, and applying and installing balancing energies into the land. But then there's also buildings as well. The tradition were builders with stone, and that applies to our architecture. So it's working with the land itself or with the buildings on the land. So I'll give you an example. I have a project in Hampshire at the moment. It's an amazing project where there are 5 horses there, and it's a healing place. And we're going to be applying the actual sacred geometry of the land itself back into the land to heal the land. It's one of the key ways that I work, which is using a very special system of sacred geometry called solar geometry, which is calculated from mandalas related to the movement of the sun around a specific place. So the calculations are always for that place. And like the geometry, the mandala that appears is like a horoscope for the land, and it generates frequencies. And those frequencies are like the part of the land's own energetic vibrational DNA. And we can select them and then bring them together in combinations to then create healing structures and geometry to give to the land, to heal the land, to bring it into balance. So we're actually using its own frequencies to heal it. And so we have a big piece of work where we're about to be doing this, create a grid across the land, which will then balance the land itself and also the surrounding landscape. And then onto that land, well, we're going to put some specific structures. For example, a standing stone, which is going to go on a particular point, and that's a crossing of some underground water lines. There's a lot of underground water there. And so where there's a lot of water, there's a lot of electricity, and the horses there. So we've got these horses that are like taking all this charge on, and the owner is very clairvoyant and works with the horses. So there's this incredible relationship where we did a test post where this crossing point, which then allowed the geoelectric charge to be released. And then all of a sudden, we got a message from the horses to say that all this stored geoelectric charge that was between their hoof and their first joint was able to be released, so they could relax into the land, and they're super happy. So that's that. You know, it's really, really quite incredible. So we're doing that to balance the land, and then on that site, we're going to put 2 circles. I'm not sure what they are going to be yet. We had an idea for one, and the horses said, no, we don't want that. We actually want 2 of these others. So I don't know what they're going to be yet, but
Yeah.
so I've got 5 horses and 1 human. So I've got 6 clients, and we will find out what what's going to unfold. And those structures, those circles, again, will be designed with the music, the frequencies of the land, and they'll then work across the land for specific things. There'll probably be 2 healing sanctuaries on the land. And then what happens is that the beautiful thing with the work is, the bit I love the most is when you do this, and you find nice earth energy vortexes. So I guess, you know, quite a lot of the people watching will be aware of earth energy vortexes and maybe interact with them when they do dowsing, go to sacred sites, go to apiary, that sort of thing. What I do is I find them, and then we build particular structures around them. And then what happens is that vortex on the ground gets connected with information from the planets, and then a really beautiful thing happens, that it then creates a very powerful, even more powerful, balanced energy field that the surrounding ecosystem recognizes. So those trees around it go, oh, there's another one of us, and they connect to it, and you can then dowse new energy lines. So it then basically connects together the ecosystem. So if I'm working with a house, and we were able to then design that energy structure, that pattern, those frequencies into the house or that building, then the ecosystem recognizes it as part of itself, because it's got its own frequency, it resonates with it, so they're at the same frequency, and then it then becomes part of its ecosystem. It's not a separate thing, because we come along, build a building, and it's completely the wrong frequency, and the land just goes, what's this, you know? And then there is imbalance. There's imbalance, and when there's lots and lots of those, when the materials are wrong, the locations are wrong, the alignment's wrong, then we chuck loads of EMFs into it, like the buildings are then sick themselves, and the land gets sick because the buildings are sick, and then we get sick because of all of those things.
Yeah.
So when we're able to work in this way, we then get the land recognizing those structures, whether it's a circle or a house, and that's real biological architecture, and it's quite beautiful to see.
That's a lovely term, that the beauty, the biological architecture. So would you say, it's interesting with the horses and the connection with the horses, is it a case that horses recharge themselves with electricity and discharge? I mean, is it, because one of the things that has been on my mind the last year or so is that actually because we're light and we don't necessarily have to eat. I'm not saying we don't eat, but you know, obviously the sun gives us a huge amount of energy, but also, you know, grounding and that discharge and that charging. Is it can you create these spaces where you can actually say, well, look, if you go in here, it will discharge you, but if you go over there, you will actually charge? I mean, is it that scientific?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. Essentially, the standing stones, if there's single standing stones, and wherever you see them, like Brittany is one of the amazing examples. There are some 5, 6, 7, 8 meters higher. They're huge. They were a standing stone on its own, especially if it's on a higher point, will attract and will draw in, obviously, sunlight, and that's drawing in what we would call like the yang frequency, the yang prana, the positive prana from the sun. It's also going to bring in infrared radiation and particular paramagnetic frequencies, and also gamma radiation. So it's going to pull in all this amazing stuff from the sun and then discharge it into the earth. It's going to then allow that energy to dissipate into the land. If anyone knows about the round towers in Ireland, I may well talk about them probably in August when we'll talk. The round towers collect that and then distribute to the land. And to an extent, churches and steeples, which are antennas, do the same job. Then in a second area of enclosure, if you then have a spot where there's water and trees, that area is then going to collect essentially more of the opposite frequency, and it's going to be a place where you can discharge, but it's also the balancing space. So classically, there would be these places of high vibration, the circles and the stones, and then there may probably be another enclosure where there would be water, a holy well, a place for cleansing, a place of purification, a place of water where there was a place for fertility or for childbirth, that sort of thing. so that those forces were recognized coming from the planets. Difference between sun and moon energy. I have another client I have a client currently in Netherlands, where we're designing structure, and it's to do with the moon, to bring moon energy in between two willows, and the two willows stand on a line of a small brook, and the water source is about 300 or 400 meters to one side. It's about connecting the light coming down, in particular moonlight, with light that's coming up from the earth. It's basically high frequency light from the center of the earth. So the structure between these two willow trees really is anchoring this other frequency light, and it's a place in which we're able to then infuse these two frequencies of light into the water to then purify light. Very much to do with the quality of silver and sunlight and moonlight, as opposed to the sunlight. So yeah, so both of those key polarities were absolutely recognized, and then were utilized in those traditions, ancient traditions.
It's interesting, isn't it, that the kind of the inverted descriptions that people use for tree hugging. It's very much seen as a throwaway kind of woo-woo phrase, but actually it's that's it's a key thing, isn't it? If you lie back on a stone or you lie back on a tree, you can actually heal yourself, and you're drawing energy up. And it feels to me that the nuance in your work, Mark, you're not doing it with saying to people, go there and do this, but you're actually broadening the frequency of the scope of what can happen in a particular place, and I find it fascinating that this knowledge is becoming more mainstream. And I don't mean mainstream, I mean just more broader. And actually even those little phrases, like tree hugging, people are now beginning to say, well, actually this is what it means. And these sacred circles, I mean, I always thought they were just tourist attractions, and you get given the kind of the line of they were, for various rituals or whatever, and there's always a stamp put on them. But now this knowledge is coming from the bottom up, and we're actually getting, through work that you're doing, we're actually getting the true meaning of the stones, true meaning of the net, the cosmic net, the planetary grid, the earth energies, the water energies, all this stuff's coming forward now. And I just find it fascinating that you've kind of suddenly you started doing the work in a modern way, and that's really exciting for me. When I met you and I saw your presentation, I was like, this is really exciting that Mark is doing this, because there's not many people in your space, really. There are people who are doing feng shui and doing kind of more remedial work, and I know you do remedial work, but actually this real strong coming together of all the elements, off-world, under, subterranean, is absolutely fascinating. And I'm really looking forward to you talking in the summer. And I do think, Mark, getting out there and exposing people to this sort of information is incredibly healing on many levels. It's healing just to know that you're around and you're doing this work. People, for me personally, just to know that you're out doing this work and exposing other people to your work is fascinating, because it's quite embryonic, isn't it, what you're doing?
It is. It's you're right. It's the tradition essentially, were able to develop over millennia an understanding of the science of vibration that only in the last 50 years has been able to be recognized, and that's what we'll be talking about in the summer. Like there's a whole 50 years of Russian scientists basically worked out what my tradition and other groups have been doing and have been building in the landscape, and they just have been able to really recognize what's going on. It's essentially working with etheric forces, and they were enclosures or buildings, and now it's been refined, and And I hope, you know, we can hopefully use this to be able to create places that we can then connect with the incredible energy that's within the earth, and also the energy that's within the atmosphere, and then that's within space. And that was always the purpose, to connect heaven and earth, and to be able to give this knowledge back to the land and be able to use is incredibly empowering, because we have a massive military industrial complex that basically caps the access to this, you know, the highest levels of knowledge, and this is part of it, and it is labeled pseudoscience, you know, to keep it to keep it controlled, whereas actually it is incredibly powerful science that is something that we can use to connect to the planet and to the universe, and the layers of consciousness within all of those. And I think that's its greatest gift. You know, we now have people go into existing, you know, going to sacred sites and going there in groups, in community, and, you know, with intention, and connecting to those frequencies. And then my work isn't about creating more of those spaces. The more places we have, the more places of purity we can have, the more places of connection, the greater then that we can allow that connection between the consciousness of the planet and with ourselves, and to reconnect with the formative forces in the universe. And a lot of that was taken away. You know, there's, you know, those structures in the land were destroyed, broken down. You know, the lineages of the traditions, you know, the witch hunts, you know, we lost so many lineages of indigenous European shamanic traditions and shamanic connections through that slaughter of all of those lineage holders, and those women in particular who connected to all of those frequencies. Being able to reclaim that through this technology is really is the highest purpose of that. You know, we can also make places that are really safe. I mean, to be able to build hospitals and places to be birthed that are not full of EMFs and are really balanced. You know, you can come into the world and leave the world, you know, without those influences is important, but at a high level, to be able to recognize that there's a technology to allow us to open ourselves up so that we can connect with that universal consciousness. That was always the main intention of the work.
Yeah, it's certainly you know, we are in a frequency challenge, let's say. I don't like to use the word war, but it is a frequency, an unveiling of these etheric powers, and actually people are coming into tune with them, you know, on a mass scale. And one of the things I love about what you're doing is you're embodying that, but you're also giving people it's a place to experience things. And I find with a lot of kind of what I would call quantum work or energetic work, people can talk about it a lot, and the people they're talking to, they can't really get it because they haven't done it. And once they've done it, they're like, oh my God, I feel powerful. You know, doing Qigong sessions, you feel different. When I did my course last year for 4 days, the week afterwards, I hardly ate. I was full of energy. And once you experience it for yourself, you realize that the human potential is massive. And you can talk about it as much as you want, but until you actually experience it, you don't really understand the true power. And also, once you've got that true power, you've felt that true power, you realize how kind of, you know, limited we have been, and about how deprogrammed we have been from our true potential. And I think it's a beautiful thing to be able to create spaces where people can actually go in, horses as well, you know, and actually experience, you know, planetary cosmic grids, and this the creation energy of you know, Mother Earth. It is truly magnificent. And the more people that go out and experience nature in its entirety, and obviously what you're doing is you're building natural cathedrals. You know, you're building spaces to experience these energies without actually having a building there, which I think is even more powerful, because it just opens up the landscape for people to say, oh, there's a tree over there, or there's a natural piece of rock. And then you get more connected with nature once you experience going into some of these spaces. So, you know, it is an incredible thing, Mark, that you're doing, and you know, I I'm very grateful for you just to be in my life, just to know that you're doing that work, and it's something that I really encourage people to get involved with. I don't know how how would you where do you think people should start with this subject? I mean, I know it's difficult because people have oh, I'm in the garden and this, but what is a really good way of getting into this subject?
Well, I think I mean, a great way is just experiencing the earth energies. Learning to dowse is probably the most visceral. You talked about qigong and then feeling these energies. I think, starting with, starting to use this is probably the best thing to do, because you then start to recognize that you're an antenna for this energy. There's so much of it there. I think that's probably the best way. Learning to dowse, learning to be able to start to feel and recognize the incredible amounts of different energy and frequencies that exist within, coming from underneath the ground, and then also within the atmosphere. Because it isn't. It's a an invisible landscape. That's the best way. I mean, we now have an incredible renaissance of people looking into sacred geometry. That's probably the other biggest area. And there's so many amazing videos online. There's an amazing video called Sonic Geometry, which is an amazing explanation, about 30 minutes, of the understanding between harmonics and geometry, and how the relationship between those archetypal forms and sound frequencies are. That's an amazing video. I think there's several of those.
Mm.
That's very much at the center of the work. I mean, all of this is now coming through. We've got such incredible research, people delving into the ancient work and finding new things. And I think that the timing is amazing as well. Like this ancient knowledge of my tradition, it was almost gone. It was like one guy left, and he decided, right, we just need to get it out there. And he got death threats, and then, from within the tradition, and it survived. And probably about the same time that wisdom keepers, the Hopi, Inuit, think of any tradition, just decided we need to share what we know so that we can all help the planet. And that was another element to that change, that all those secrets basically came out, and then we can then use that to allow ourselves to come together. And so the understanding that we are these incredible beings that can connect. Some people can still do it naturally, but this is the best way. And being able to go out and find all of these frequencies in the landscape and in your home as well, knowing that knowing where the bad places are, to improve our health, but also knowing where the great places are to choose just, the best place to put your armchair, so you can actually take advantage of this upwelling of vortex that's going to open your heart. So there's, really quite simple things that can be done. I think, those two areas, I mean, anything I'd say is sacred geometry is such a rabbit hole. It's
Yeah,
once you start,
yeah.
once you start, like, you're and you really get into it, you're in it for several decades. There is so much, and I think it is such an incredible body of knowledge, because it really is the archetypes of who we are. You move into energy and biophotons and DNA. I'll be talking about this, in the summer. Really, it's the where energy and pattern and shape are really all part of one incredible design system that's been created in, like, our the multidimensionality of who we are, and our energy fields are just mind-blowing. That's why this is really great, just to get on, just to start, like you're by recognizing that. Once you've done that, then start to feel the energies in the land. You can start to recognize that our energy fields are so resonant with so much energy that's available to us, and so many frequencies, and there's so much variety of the planet. People are interested in astrology. You can, you can start to really go into the next layers of that in terms of how the alignments of the planets, obviously of when we were born, define the qualities of who we are. Then the next thing is alignments and planets and structures and stone circles. Then you go, wow, these guys had an incredible like awareness and knowledge base to be able to locate these edifices thousands of years ago to line up with the movements of the planets. That engineering, that knowledge, and that building skill was remarkable. There was hundreds of thousands of medicine wheels and circles and stones, and even across North America before the Europeans arrived. All those structures were doing specific jobs to balance the landscape and then be places of sanctity, but also working as working calendars. Incredible knowledge. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, once you start to sort of see those things and recognize that the knowledge base was so huge, and we have, you talked about frequencies. We are challenged in terms of the amount of frequencies that are out there now. So we have to then be able to recognize that there was a simpler time when we could just feel, all of that EMF, junk wasn't there. It was a cleaner, more pure environment. So some of the work as well is how do we clean that from our houses and our homes and environments. And then some of that work as well then is how do you do that in the environment? How do we then start to reclaim the sanctity and the purity of our environment and our landscape from technological, chemical, biological, and frequency invasions which are falling and are all around us in the environment now? And that's another piece of work that I think that is vital for people to recognize that once you start to recognize that, and then hold on, what's going on around us, we do have incredible challenges which are affecting the soil and how well our plants can grow, and also then how vital we can be, how healthy we can be, because our biofields need sunlight, and we are solar electric beings. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the healing qualities. It's such a all-encompassing, it's a comprehensive system, isn't it, for healing, right across the board. It is quite something once you get into that, that spatial cleanliness, and once you put yourself into that. I mean, I always find, instantly when I'm in nature, I want to take my shoes off. I get an urge. I have been with groups of people where I've been going for a walk and I'm like, I'm really sorry, I've just got to take my shoes off. And once you get to that stage where you realize that just taking your shoes off on a real fun, basic level, it's like that's not me wanting to do that. That's like, I've got to do it. And why have I got to do it? Because I've been walking on concrete and tarmac with plastic shoes on for 95% of my time, and when I'm in nature, all that energy around me is telling me, it's saying, get your feet out, get your feet out,
Yeah.
and then you start healing. You're instantly, once your skin is on the earth, you start healing. And it seems to me that part of your work, well, a big part of your work, is to create these spaces where people can go in, they can calm down, they can leave the kind of, the matrix behind, if you want to call it that, and actually just get back to nature and be calm and reset, if I can use that word. So, it's a beautiful thing, Mark. I'd love to, I was saying this earlier today to somebody, I'd love to have loads of money, yeah, where I could just make folly buildings, in the woods, not buildings, but have just be able to go out and create these spaces for people, just like parks, where you could just set up these incredible spaces for people to just go along and just, take their shoes off, have some water there, have all the elements there, and just be in that healing space. I'm sure that not that long ago there were those spaces. I don't know the history of that, but certainly, it would be a beautiful thing to just have these spaces where you could go. And I know that a lot of the history has been kind of disconnected from us. especially, you know, on all healing levels. I'm hoping to go to Chatsworth this year up north, and Derbyshire has a great tradition of hydrotherapy. I don't know whether you know that. Obviously, Buxton's famous for Buxton water, but it's incredible. And a lot of the buildings at Chatsworth actually had these charged water devices where people would go along and they'd use water to heal themselves, and they'd have these enormous landscaped gardens for people to go and heal in, you know. And it's something which clearly, I'm not going to get too conspiratorial about it, but you know, the English Heritage and National Trust have taken over these big national organizations, and whenever you go to these places, they never mention the healing qualities of these places. You know, and actually they are, aren't they? There's no doubt that these places were created for people to go along and be healed. So it's a great resurgence, and like, I love the way that you called it a renaissance, because it is a renaissance. It seems that the knowledge that you've brought to us as a gift to us, to this generation and the generations below us, is profoundly important, because it's the only way forward. You know, that phrase, it's always darkest before dawn. You know, and with the air pollution, the water pollution, the lack of beautiful food, you know, that whole system of living that we're born into is coming to an end, and we know that. And one of the reasons we know that, Mark, is because people like yourself are coming along and moving all that out of the way. You know, actually recreating a new landscape with which we can move into. And I'm very grateful for you for that, because it's not an easy task to do that. But when, like yourself, you're embodying it, that's what you do. That's what you do. Like a singer sings, you know, like a painter paints. You go out and you create these spaces. It's exactly the same thing. So, you know, I'm very grateful. Like I say, Mark, I'm gonna stop the conversation here. It's been about 45 minutes. I'd love to do this again, and go a little bit deeper. You know, if you'd just like to say something about your favorite project, I'd love you to just give us a little something that's really, you know,
I can do that. I can do that.
Yeah, go for it.
So I have a project in Azores, and I've been working on it for about 6 months. And the Azores is in the mid-Atlantic Ocean, and it's part of Portugal, and it's Plato talked about it as, and people have recognized this location as being one of the Atlantean outposts. But the Azores is a group of islands in the mid-Atlantic. This amazing geographical location where there's a triangular piece of land, which is like a micro continent where 3 tectonic plates meet. And I'm working on an island called São Miguel, which means Saint Michael, and it links to the Saint Michael line, which most people watching are going to know about. And I'm working in a town on a project which is going to be an 80-acre wellness center with an esoteric university, and a place where people come and study everything we've been talking about, where you can come and stay, where there's an ecosystem where there's no chemtrails, and there's a paramagnetic soil, and people can come and then walk barefoot, and then there'll be healing chambers utilizing very ancient technology and all natural materials. You know, so it's, you know, it really is that a place where all of this ancient technology is going to come together with an awareness of the things that can happen after the dawn. You know, that, like the golden light appears. You know, really, this is a place where people can come to really optimize all their vitality, and more than that, you know, where we'll be talking about quantum healing and looking at how the DNA can, there'll also be technologies that can really develop ourselves at the quantum level, and not just memes or videos, but really the stuff that actually works. Like the very new tech, but also then that we can be utilizing the best of the ancient technologies, the ancient understanding of the land, the earth energies, the volcanism, the power in the land, the water, in a pristine ecosystem. So it's a very special project which brings everything together, and I hope that once it's complete, there'll be more of those. And I have other projects a couple of other projects as well, which have similar intentions. There are more than one group doing this, and there are probably many more, where people are recognizing that we need to live together in communities, that we need to be able to respect the land. And then when we do that, and this project has a huge organic farm, and it's a as well as being a place for this quantum technological earth-based conscious renaissance. It is also a project that has full sovereignty as well, and is going to be basically a model for the way in which that we can live, and also that the project can be independent, and so people can come there and can learn, can live, and go home with a really enhanced biofield and knowledge base. And I think that there's going to be a lot more of those, and these are the projects I'm really interested in, places where there's a physical community that's completely connected to the landscape, in which there's a complete reciprocity. I've just lost it there.
Yeah. Symbiosis.
Yeah, that's it. But between
Yeah.
the land and the people and the consciousness, that is really beneficial to everyone. And I think that that's pretty exciting. Yeah. So there's even more of these, and I think and a lot more people are recognizing that we can't be separate, that we have to, if we can come together and then pool our resources, and really protect the environment, protect each other, we're really gonna thrive.
Yeah, it's absolutely foundational to be able to do that first. You need to get those alignments and the clearing and everything ready before you actually go on to actually form a community. Indigenous populations didn't just choose a place to be. There was many factors involved, because that's the way of nature. But let me just ask you, Mark, that's a great project, and I'd love to go and see you there. This all sounds brilliant. At any time of the year. Let me just ask you, are you doing any talks? Is there anything that you've got in the pipeline at the moment, or are you busy actually just on the ground?
No, I've got quite a lot. I'm just setting up a series of workshops throughout the year. I'm actually doing them at the moment. I'm going to be teaching a series of bioenergy workshops. There's going to be one in Wiltshire, one in Stroud, and then I'll be posting those on my website. There's one's going to be looking at bioenergy and how we can enhance our connection to the environment. Another one's going to be looking at orgone energy and frequency, and how we can then use the creation of those energies in our homes. So I've got those happening, and there'll be more of those workshops throughout the year. I'm going to be doing a lot of work with pyramids as well. I'm doing a lot of research into pyramids. We'll be talking about that in the summer at Shine as well. We're going to be building a big pyramid in Portugal in September. There's a amazing conference called Gathering of the Tribes, which is about 700 or 800 people. It's like a Burning Man style camp in a forest in northern Portugal. So the Azores project is going to be having a big pyramid there. We're going to be having workshops and interactive projects and sculpture, all to do with energy. So I think there's going to be, I think that's going to be quite a major part of the year in terms of research and connecting to other people. Yeah, all of those are backed up on the website and the events page.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to put your biog and your contact details in the summary below. I really appreciate you joining me, Mark. it's been a fantastic conversation. It's a great overview of what you do. I'd love to come back and maybe deep dive on some of the different things that you're doing to
Yeah.
give people a little bit more of a deeper understanding.
Yeah, I'd
And
love to do that.
and I really appreciate your service. You know, it's brilliant what you're
Thanks.
doing. And yeah,
I was about to say,
yeah,
when you post the links, I've just created something called Home Sanctuary, which allows me to work remotely with people's homes. So if anyone wants to connect with the work and wants to benefit from the work, and they don't have a project they want to build, then I'm able to work remotely. And so that's called Home to Sanctuary. That will be on the links. I think I'll send you the link.
yeah.
And if anyone wants to get to work with me, if they just message me and use the word shine, they'll get 10% from for that service.
That's amazing. Thank you. What a great offering. Thanks very
My
much,
pleasure.
Mark. Have a great day, and I'll speak to you very soon.
Thanks, see you later.
Cheers. Cheers.
Bye bye.